In this video, we shall be talking about the roles of the second speaker in the World Schools debating format. Second speaker proposition, second speaker opposition. Now, second speaker proposition, your job is to start off with what is called a roadmap. This is like a case split, but this is a case split of your individual speech, but not of the entire team. This is whereby you tell us what you're going to tell us, right? And then in what order. Tell us the arguments that you're going to present and in what order. That is the roadmap. Secondly, let's move on to in the event that the debaters tend to be about a definition. It is essential for the second speaker to come and justify the definition that has been given by first speaker proposition. Failure to do so, assuming that the opposition has challenged your definition, it gives the adjudicators the impression that the challenge that has been given by opposition is sensible, legitimate, and eligible in this debate. So you need to defend your definition in the event that it has been challenged. Now that you have given a roadmap or you have defended your definition, you need to move on to rebut the opposition. Second speaker proposition, you have two types of rebuttals that you need to do. Defensive rebuttal and offensive rebuttal. Defensive rebuttal. This is the type of rebuttal whereby the second speaker comes and defends whatever the first speaker of opposition said. The first speaker of opposition would have come and attacked your arguments that have been made by first speaker. You need to show how his or her attacks are irrelevant, are weak, and do not hold any water in this debate. It is your job to resuscitate the first speaker's case by attacking the attacks that were made by first speaker of opposition. Second type of rebuttal is offensive rebuttal. Offensive rebuttal, this is whereby the second speaker from proposition attacks the clash or the positive arguments that were presented by first speaker opposition. Show why the arguments are irrelevant, why the arguments are weak, and why the arguments do not make sense in this debate. So sometimes I call it a clash of a clash, because the first speaker of opposition would have presented a clash. Now you need to come and clash that clash. So in simple terms, I call it a clash of a clash. Now, failure to do so, it gives the adjudicators the impression that those arguments, the positive, substantive arguments that were presented by first speaker opposition are relevant in this debate. And that's failure on your side as second speaker proposition. And hence you really need to attack that clash, and you really need to resuscitate the first speaker's positive matter and the definition if the event calls that for. Now that you're done with the rebuttal, the defensive and offensive rebuttal, you need to move on to your argument. Now, your arguments are the share of the case split that the first speaker promised the adjudicators that they will come from you. You need to follow the structure. You need to give those arguments as per promise. Failure to do so gives the adjudicators an impression that there is no teamwork and you are failing to fulfill your role, because you need to give us your arguments, which is a deeper analysis, explanations, and other examples showing why your team is right in this debate, why the first speaker's case is right, why your case is right, and why the whole proposition bench's case is right. Now, it is important that you signpost your arguments before you tell us, right? When we're talking about signposting, this is whereby you tell us the argument that you're now talking about, right? Show us. Now, moving on to my rebuttals, blah, 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 blah. Now, moving on to my positive matter. My first argument is, you tell us the argument, and then you hit your argument extensively, show us why your argument is really relevant. Now, when you're moving on to the next argument, if that's the case, tell us that moving on to my second argument, so that we adjudicators do not mix one argument or two arguments and make them one. It's important that you have structure, right? Now, let's move on to second speaker opposition. Second speaker opposition, your job is virtually the same as second speaker proposition. But however, you have more rebuttal to do, since two speakers from side proposition have stood up and spoke compared to second speaker proposition. Right. Now, you also have to do a roadmap, right? Tell us what arguments you're going to present and in what order, so that adjudicators can be able to follow your case. So this is similar to second speaker proposition, right? Now, after your roadmap, in the event that there is a definitional challenge, you need to defend your definition, the definition challenge that was presented by first speaker opposition, right? Now that you've given your roadmap, or you are now challenging the definition or defending the definitional challenge, you need to move on to do rebuttals. You need to rebut the proposition, especially the second speaker's proposition matter, right? We assume that the second speaker would have presented an extension, now a new additional material on his or her arguments. You need to attack that, right? This is offensive rebuttal. So you do offensive rebuttal on second speaker's positive matter, right? You then move on to do offensive rebuttal on first speaker's arguments, with the assumption that those arguments were not really dealt with, or they were not dealt with by your partner, who's the first speaker. Although the first speaker would have dealt with them, sometimes you might feel that you need to do that rebuttal. Now, as second speaker opposition, your rebuttals should not stretch more than 3 to 4 minutes, right? Because your speech will end up becoming a rebuttal speech. Because your main crux, your main job is to give us the extension of the opposition's case. Now that you have done a defensive and offensive rebuttal, right? Because your defensive is defending your clash that has been crushed by second speaker proposition. You need to move on to give us your arguments. As I said before, similar to second speaker proposition, you need to move on with your argumentation. First speaker opposition would have given us a case split. Now you need to give us your share of the case split, showing why your team is right. Failure to do so, it gives the adjudicators the impression that, one, you do not know your role. Two, as opposition, your case is mainly hinged on first speaker's case, and you as second speaker, you have no deeper analysis, you failed to give an explanation or other relevant examples that substantiate your case as team opposition. Right. You also need to signpost your arguments, right? Now, moving on to my first argument, blah, blah, blah. Moving on to my second argument, which is this, right? Because the assumption or the best strategy is give your arguments a theme, name your arguments, right? Now, moving on from my rebuttals, moving on to my positive matter, first argument, which is this, right? This is precisely what second speakers in world schools do. Now, second speaker proposition, your rebuttals should not stretch to more than 3 minutes or beyond 3 minutes, because you have a lot of defense or you have a lot of material that you need to extend on. Second speaker opposition, your rebuttals should not stretch beyond 4 minutes. Why? Because you have more rebuttals to do than second speaker proposition, and you also have an equal share of an extension that you need to do. So to the speakers, second speakers, it's important to tell us what you are going to tell us. Tell us what you told us. Thank you.